Welcome to Open Studio, WGBH's weekly spotlight on arts and culture from around the region and the nation. I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on Open Studio, artist Stephanie Cole making portraits in pieces.
I found that building things and making things was what was really I was meant to do.
Then for New Repertory Theater, how the show must go on.
Whatever we create, we don't want it to be a stopgap, because I don't think digital theater is going to go away.
Plus, Sara Porkalob brings her family drama to the show Dragon Mama.
And I just want to be sure that you know that this is a gay club. No, I know it's a gay club. I mean, I'm gay. Oh, are you gay, Tina? I'm so gay. Great, yeah, great.
It's all now on Open Studio. First up, we meet artist Stephanie Cole, and it's fair to say she never expected to be met. A lifelong artist now in her 70s, she never intended to show her work publicly. But now that museums, including the Fuller Craft Museum, have taken notice, well, that ship has sailed. When it comes to the artwork of Stephanie Cole, here you will find her life in pieces.
I found that building things and making things was what was really I was meant to do.
Within these wooden frames are bits of everything the artist has been collecting for more than 70 years. Shards and shells, windows and words. Even Cole's DNA is embedded within these assemblages.
Yes! Are you thinking of the Royal Reliquary window? Probably in other places, too. I think there's some of my hair in the getting there.
Temples to the artist's tenacity, these sculptures now on view at the Fuller Craft Museum represent how Cole has looked at herself, her grief, and the world, from the pain of losing a beloved cat to the euphoria of turning 60.
The one thing that is more joy than anything else is my self-portrait, Domestic Goddess. It was supposed to be self-portrait at age 60, but there were so many things going on, it wasn't done until age 63. But it's called Domestic Goddess because I was really happy with everything that I had accomplished.
An artist for as long as she can recall, and well documented here when she was 4, Cole first learned from her artist father, then at art school. She later became an art teacher, raised a family, and with her husband, restored an antique home where she's excavated many an artifact now found in her work. And it's here where she's had the luxury of working in a filled-to-the-brim studio, only since she was in her 60s.
You just get deep into it. And I've had to learn to be able to portion it out because I'm a grandma, I'm a mom, I'm a wife. There are still responsibilities. That's my first priority, but I'm able to do it in bits and pieces, and I'll tell them I'm going out in the studio, and they're pretty good about letting me be.
To hear about an artist that was only creating for herself, to make sense of the world around her, to chart her own history, was really compelling to me.
Elements of the show bring us deep into Cole's life and emotions. We find a radiant rendering of her husband Jim, or my golden man, as she crowns him, and a frank assessment of her own aging. The work is so personal, Cole never intended to sell or even really share it, until curators like Beth McLaughlin took notice.
She has this very deep understanding of objects and this very intuitive connection to material culture. And she has a respect for the histories of these objects and for the embedded stories that come with them to her.
It was Cole's daughters who urged her to put the work out in the world. Art is the family business, by the way.
I don't wanna wait for our lives to be over.
Her daughter Paula Cole is the Grammy-winning singer-songwriter and a chief champion. For Stephanie Cole, seeing her work in a museum leaves the artist both delighted and slightly perplexed.
How do you go from being private to a museum? That takes chutzpah, doesn't it? So it was my daughter's chutzpah, not mine.
And how do you feel about them being out now?
I love it. I love it. And what I love especially is people's reaction to it. That's what I love.
Both Cole and McLaughlin say women in particular are drawn to her work, finding pieces of themselves among hers.
I see an artist who is juggling the demands of family. She also has very overtly feminist work, such as Don't Wake the Tiger, which is a gorgeous mosaic piece that was created after the 2016 election that is speaking directly to the oppression of women and how we do need to rise up and to fight for equality.
It's mostly women that talk to me about their feelings about it. They've said things like, I feel brave now. I think I'm going to do things that I have not allowed myself to do. Or they identify with moments of grief or joy or materials lying around, because a lot of people collect things.
Because we are the sum of our parts or pieces. Next, like theaters around the world, New Repertory Theater in Watertown hasn't been able to put anything on its stages. But it is finding new footing, from walking plays to streaming, and all while taking some of the most forceful steps to combat racism. New Rep's artistic director Michael Bobbitt recently joined me to discuss that and more. Michael Bobbitt, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Jared, for having me. It's good to see you again.
I'll start with the hardest question. When is theater coming? When is live theater coming back?
I don't know. And I think that we all have to be prepared that we need to continue innovating and trying new ways of doing theater, because who knows? I mean, COVID's going to be around forever.
And what does that mean for, and in a moment we'll talk about the virtual offerings that you have, but what does that mean for theater in this interim to have this time away from a live stage and not having audiences come together physically?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. I think, one, we have the opportunity to start thinking about ways of innovating and incorporating digital theater or film theater into our canon, things that we have stayed away from because the building of doing theater inside was a sacred space, and now that has been challenged, so we have to come up with new things.
Well, does this, and I'll let you talk about the virtual offerings that you're about to have in New Repertory Theater throughout November and into the winter. But does this make you filmmakers all of a sudden?
Yes, and yes and no. And this is, I think, is a deficit in the training that we're offering our theater professionals right now that we're all learning it. But yeah, we have to become filmmakers. We have to think about what the people are going to be seeing at home and how do we create that sort of live and visceral experience, even though we're separated and not in the same space.
So tell me what you're doing with your virtue. You have 2 plays coming up, 2 shorter plays that'll be online. Tell me about them.
Yeah, so we're trying to figure out a way to, as I said, create this sort of live and visceral experience of seeing something happening at the same time. So we have 2 plays coming up. One is by Alexis Shear and one is by Miranda Adojoke. They are written for this platform. They're both interactive. So patrons will come to a website. They'll be greeted by sort of a house manager of some sort, and they'll be told about how the event will work. They'll see one play. I think we're going to see Alexis's first. It's about a half an hour. It is interactive, so patrons will be part of the action. They will have to gather things on their own to participate along with the actor in the play. And then at intermission, they're going to be met by, I don't know, like a virtual bartender or a busker entertaining them for the 15 minutes of intermission. And then they'll come back and go to the second play.
I mean, you're not going to tell me it's not fun to do, but my question was going to be, is this fun to do, or do you think we're doing this because we have to do this to get through this time?
I think it's both in many ways. And one of the things that the staff and I talked about was that whatever we create, we don't want it to be a stopgap, because I don't think digital theater is going to go away. But I do miss the live aspect of it. And I was happy to see you at the walking play a couple of weeks ago, because that was exciting to have theater outdoors.
It was my first live performance in, 6-7 months at that point. It was very exciting for me, too. But it also made me wonder how you all are doing. We hear about the epic job loss in the arts community. How do you assess it at this point?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that we probably haven't seen the kind of job loss we're going to see, because, again, I'm not sure we'll be back up and running for a while. We have put people first, and with the support of the board, we have chosen not to lay off anyone or furlough anyone. We are able to keep our doors open through the generosity of donors and patrons and sponsors and foundations, so we're super, super grateful for that. as things reopen and as we embrace innovation, I'm hoping we'll bring in a little cash from productions that are not in the theater.
Your theater is one of the first that I saw that has come out with a major, comprehensive, very detailed anti-racism plan. We've talked about this on this show, the racial reckoning that is happening all across the country and, of course, within American theater. You start, I noticed, with the board. A lot of people talk about the shows you present, the people you put on stage, but you talked about the board. Why is that important?
Well, I will be frank and honest that I think that theater and the arts has been terrible at developing anti-racist culture and diversifying their audiences. And mostly because the people that are coming up with these ideas are probably programming people. They're artists. And so their ideas for fixing and solving problems is to tell stories or to do sort of outreach programs. And those don't work. New Rep has chosen to focus on governance and focus on operations and patron services and marketing, all the things on the other side of the table, because I believe that is where the racism exists. And not that there are bad people involved, but there are policies and procedures that we have been perpetuating for years and years and years. And the reason why we start with the board is because that's where the decisions are made. If that board is not building in anti-racist policies, then all that will trickle down into the rest of the organization. So we're doing things like we're getting rid of our subscriptions because subscriptions can perpetuate white supremacy.
You're the first and still the only person I've heard talk about that. Subscriptions, I'm sure people know, but we'll remind them that's where you buy a package for the entire season. You're guaranteed seats. But why have you taken a look at that?
Well, there are many problems with subscriptions. Some are financial. We're collecting all this money from people 6 months to a year before we produce something. And because it's a cash flow model, we're spending that money when it comes in. So God forbid there's a flood or a strike or a pandemic, we have already spent your money. There are issues with marketing because most of these campaigns, we kick you out at the end of the year and then we have to put all these resources into renewing you. So that's a problem. So that aside, there's many problems with subscriptions. But from a racism point of view, you have to think about what group of people has enough money to buy a year's worth of tickets 6 months in advance. And then what privileges are we giving those people that we are taking away from other people? There has to be a better way. And we're now looking into sort of a Netflix model where you pay a certain amount of money a month and you get all access to all of our content. And I think that's going to be a better model. That's a little bit more of an equitable patron loyalty program. But we're also going to general admission seating so that everyone has the chance to sit up front.
How do you expect people to react to this? And I ask this in light of something that I read about that I mentioned you were first out, or one of the first with an anti-racism plan, one of the first, if not the first, with a message in support of Black Lives Matter on June 1st. And how was that answered?
I'm hoping that as we roll out these new procedures and policies from a racial equity point of view, I hope people will embrace it. Because I do believe that anti-racism is an act of love. So regarding that, when we came out with our Black Lives Matter statement, there were probably 6 or 7 patrons that responded very negatively to that. And I sent them a note saying, I appreciate your note, but you are no longer welcome to be a patron of this theater. And from my perspective, if you don't believe that Black Lives Matter, then you can't come to the theater run by a black man.
Simple as that.
Simple as that. You're not welcome. I mean, you probably can come because the ticket sales are still anonymous, but you're not welcome because our culture is going to be anti-racist. So racists are not welcome.
Well, finally, I know that I was unfair to you at the beginning asking you when theater is going to come back. And nobody has, of course, that answer. Not even the great Anthony Fauci has that answer. But do you have a show in mind, something in mind of what you want when you envision that day when you're back on the stage and you get to make that curtain speech once again of what you'd like to be saying it for?
Well, my goal is to shift New Rep from being a predominantly white institution to a predominantly multicultural institution where the stories of all of our people are being shared on stage and the audience reflects that. When I started rereading adult theater, I was like, there's like a list of 100 plays I want to do. So it's hard to pick one. I was really excited about opening the season with Angels in America, and maybe that's the first one I want to see come back really bad. with a nice diverse cast and a diverse cast of artists bringing that story to life.
And people rising up, as we see in Angels in America. Michael Bobbitt, thank you so much. Always great to see you.
You too, Jared. See you soon, my friend.
It's time now for Arts This Week, where we find an array of Monet and revolutionary fashion. The Museum of Fine Arts offers a rare display. Starting Sunday, see all 35 of its Claude Monet oil paintings in the exhibition Lasting Impression. Wednesday, catch artist William Kentridge's Kaboom at the ICA. His multimedia installation tells the story of South Africans drafted to carry supplies for colonial rulers in World War I.
You guys do nothing but complain about how you can't stand it in this place here, and then you haven't got the guts just to walk out? I mean, what do you think you are, for Christ's sake, crazy or something?
Thursday is the 45th anniversary of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest's premiere. It went on to win the 5 major Academy Awards, only the second film in history to do so. This year, the Boston International Kids Film Festival is going virtual. Tune in Friday to see student-made and professional films from around the world. Appropriate for all ages. Saturday, see how female fashion designers have changed our lives in the Peabody Essex Museum's Made It, the women who revolutionized fashion. Next, the American Repertory Theater is now streaming one of my favorite plays of 2019. That would be Dragon Mama, a show Sara Porkalob wrote and stars in about her mother coming of age in the wilds of Alaska. I spoke with Porkalob last year about bringing generations of her family's saga to the stage. But first, here's a look at Dragon Mama.
My name's Maria. Hi, Maria. My name's Tina. Tina! Wow! God, well, you sound just like Whitney. I mean, oh my God, blow my mind. You even look like her? Oh, why? 'Cause I'm black? Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna go. No, hey, I get it all the time. Actually, you remind me of Shaka Khan. What? I'm not black, though. Well, I know. I just saw you in the crowd, and your hair was just so big. Oh, I didn't really know what the dress code was, so... No, I'm just saying that I like your hair. What? I like your hair, Maria? Oh. Thank you. Sure.
Sara Porkalob, the creator of the Dragon Cycle at the American Repertory Theater. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're here from Seattle at the American Repertory Theater with your Dragon Cycle. You've taken a look at your family. You've taken a close look at your family. What was it that you saw there that you thought was ripe for telling in theater?
I think for me, it started in college. I've always loved my family very deeply, very fiercely. We're all very, very close. And whenever we hang out, we're always partying. We're singing, we're dancing, we're telling stories, we're cracking jokes. It wasn't until I had the context within my liberal arts college what my career as a theater artist could potentially look like that I was like, oh, what my potential theater career looks like doesn't look like anything I came from. Interesting.
Because what was the impression that you had about what that theater career was supposed to be?
Yeah, as a young woman of color, I didn't have any mentors or professors who were Asian women or women of color to really create a contextual environment where my experience as a second-generation Filipina American, as a child who grew up within a poor family with queer parents, what my narrative added to the American theater pedagogy. And I didn't have anything within the American theater pedagogy to reflect back at me what my human existence looked like.
Of course, you have to find a narrative arc in your family. You have to find the drama in your family.
Yeah.
What did you see?
Well, I didn't have to look far for the narrative arc and the drama. Somehow we find ourselves around the dinner table or in the living room, and then the stories from my aunts, my uncles, my moms, their past just come pouring forth. Stories of adventure, tragedy, hilarity, what happened in the Christmas of 1981, those types of stories. And when I found myself in those situations, now with the context of career as a theater professional, it changed how I was receiving those stories. And it made me really, really curious as to why there were certain discrepancies between the stories, depending on who you were talking to, or how that story revolving around my aunts and my uncles trying to feed themselves for 2 weeks when they had no idea where my grandmother was, why they could share that story with such humor and levity. Whereas for me, I'm like, that's really kind of sad. So it was a deeper curiosity as to, one, where these stories came from and how they intersected and changed depending on the perspective.
Felt your touch, and it always seemed you loved me.
Yeah, the quick billing for your grandmother's story, Dragon Lady, is everything from gangster affiliation to karaoke.
Yeah. And it's funny because for a lot of people who are not Filipino, that association seems very bizarre and unnatural. You talk to any Filipino American, it's completely natural. It's as natural as our diet, a thing that we know like the back of our hand.
And how is that the case?
It's the case in, I think, we could talk a whole other episode about, I think, the history of colonialism and imperialism and how Filipino American identity has been shaped by like American influence over hundreds of years, and what that means now for like contemporary Filipino Americans straddling like both of these cultural worlds and also wondering what is our history. Born out of that is a deep sense of strength and resilience.
How does your family feel about you telling their stories?
Oh man. There was some hesitation, but not this type of hesitation. You shouldn't do that. It was more of, really? Okay. And then when I started diving deeper and expanding not only my grandmother's story, but my aunts and my uncles and what it was like for them growing up, I think that there was some internalized shame there around these narratives that included poverty, how to survive, the survival techniques that, like, you know, so many people are like, children shouldn't have to worry about that. Well, the fact is they do worry about it every single day right here in our own country, in our own neighborhood. So I was able to really lift those and show them up in a way that I thought was hopefully compassionate and complex.
10 points for Grandma, bitches! I was afraid that I would never see my child again. But then I heard a baby crying. And like a mother emperor penguin recognizes her baby penguin's voice in a sea of a gajillion penguins, I knew that was my baby / my penguin!
When you're doing Dragon Lady, are you inhabiting your grandmother?
Definitely. You know, it's funny because my piece is really funny. You're going to laugh, I guarantee it. And when people come and see my show, they're like, how is it so funny 1 second and so tragic the next? I'm like, because it's truthful. That's really just what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to explore the truth. And when I'm on stage, you know, I used to think that I wasn't a funny actress. I was so scared of solo performance. I was just scared of being seen. And now I don't care. I'm like, I'm here, see me. How lucky you are to see me and the story. Wow. And because of that, because there isn't that fear there anymore that's stopping me from doing the thing moment to moment, it creates this like really beautiful metaphorical space and literal space that like 4 years of college tried to teach me about being in the moment, right? Be in the moment, respond honestly. I'm like, what does that mean? It's so meta. While I'm inhabiting these characters, every performance is an opportunity to learn from them. And in relationship to the audience, they always teach me something.
How do you feel the audience? You're in small spaces. You'll be at the Oberon, a very small space.
Yeah.
And especially to know that you've gotten over this notion of having fear on stage.
Well, if they're willing to look at me, it's really great. You know, the concept of Dragon Lady is that it's my grandmother's 60th birthday, and everybody in the audience is her favorite grandchild, a.k.a. me. So it feels so special to be able to walk and move through Oberon and directly interact with people that, because of the conceit, I deeply love them and I want them to be there.
What are you gonna do about it, little baby Anna? You gonna cry and get your snotty little baby tears all over me? Don't call me a baby! Ah!
dragon lady. It's an incendiary term, but you've chosen it very specifically as you've carried it through Dragon Mama.
Yeah. The examples that I saw, particularly more in mainstream entertainment, like movies and TV shows, around like Asian Pacific Islander women, was one that was always either like extremely demure or like really aggressive and vilified. And so I was like, well, I'm either Madame Butterfly or I'm a dragon lady. I wonder which out of those two the stereotype reflects at my family in a truthful way, and which one do I actually feel more akin to, and which one can I subvert? And I was like, not Madame Butterfly. Ugh. That's what I thought. And I was like, well, then I guess it's Dragon Lady. And I tried it on, and it felt right.
Well, Sara Porkalob, such a pleasure to speak with you. I can't wait to see the show.
Yay!
It's great to have you here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And that is all for this edition of Open Studio. Next week, the Curator Sculpture Park and Museum reopens with a vision of utopia. And from the so-called lynching memorial to hospitals in Rwanda, the firm finding justice in architecture. Until then, I'm Jared Bowen. Thanks for joining us. As always, you can visit us online at gbh.org/openstudio. And you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at OpenStudioGBH.